Welcome to the 15th of September meeting. Welcome to the staff and our guests, and I'd ask the General Manager to read the conditions regarding live streaming.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The meeting is being live streamed and or recorded for on-demand viewing via Council's website, and a person's image and or voice may be broadcast. Attendance at the meeting is to be taken as consent by a person or to their image and or voice being webcast. All speakers should refrain from making defamatory comments or releasing personal information about another individual without their consent. Council accepts no liability for any damage that may result from defamatory comments made by persons attending meetings. All liability will rest with the individuals who made the comments. The meeting must not be recorded by others without written consent of the Council in accordance with Council's Code of Meeting Practice. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'd ask you to stand for the prayer and the respect, please. Almighty God, may trust and justice remain with this Council in their deliberations. Amen. And I'd like to pay my respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians in the land on which we are meeting, and pay my respects to elders both past, present and future. Thank you, councillors. Be seated. Apologies and applications of leave. Do we have any?
Well, I can't apologise for council.
Seconder. Councillor Wilson, thank you. Those in favour? Thank you. Applications of leave? No applications of leave. Disclosures of interest. If anybody has disclosure of interest, please. No disclosures of...
Sorry. I do, Madam Mayor. It's the DAs, and I didn't write down the... towards the end. The item number, there it is, 9.9. Significant pecuniary interest, my neighbour.
Okay. Councillor McAllister has declared this a significant in 9.9. Any further? Confirmation of minutes, item 5. Councillor Hayward just went. Councillor Wilden, those in favour. Business arising from those minutes. Is there any business arising? Business arising. 6, outstanding matters from previous meetings. Please, there's a recommendation. Someone move it, please. Councillor Hayward again. Seconder, Councillor McAllister. Are there any questions regarding the... No questions? Thank you, Councillor Evans.
On 10.4 in outstanding action items before, I asked a question about the motorbikes riding on levy, etc. And there was just a comment here as reported to police, no activity, an inspection conducted. I think that may have not been the appropriate action. I think the action was that just to keep an eye on the situation, and so the action is not really complete. When you ask for just a general surveillance, if police are in the area, and keep an eye out for it. It did cause some concern. I got some personal phone calls because of the newspaper article, which kind of left me a bit exposed, which I was very disappointed about. So I might mention that also. And there was certainly no intent to upset locals in my comment. It was just simply to make sure that people were adhering to the health orders of the day.
Madam Mayor, can I just add to that as well? There's a concern in Goldole as well. On Dreams Hill, there's been mounds of dirt placed on what I think is public land at the top of the hill. And I did mention it to Inspector Bland when he was having lunch down at Goldole Park and I was walking, and just asked him to keep an eye on it as well. But again, I would consider that council needs to write to police and just ask that Councillor Evans has raised the public health order perspective, and for mine there's a safety issue, and significantly on Dreams Hill that motorcycle track often sees motorbikes, trail bikes crossing the highway. And that's a really dangerous bend at the top of Drings Hill there, because there's no visibility from one side and there's a lot of acceleration, particularly trucks getting up the hill from the other side. I would hate that there would be an incident that resulted in a fatality or serious injury and council had done nothing about it. Not that it's our job, but I do think that as Councillor Evans has raised, as concerned citizens contact us, and we're supposed to represent the ratepayers, I think it would behoove council to do a little bit more than just ask police to go out there one time and have a look at stuff. That probably requires a bit more vigilance. And I'll just add as well, the police are doing extra jobs at the moment, so I do understand that there may be resourcing issues, but if we were to have a death, God forbid, that would significantly impact community, and I don't think we can afford to have that happen on our watch.
Thank you. Councillor Wilden?
Yes, in outstanding action report, item report 10.1, rural land use study, I would like the list is pretty comprehensive, it's very good, quite satisfactory, but I would like it now to be sent to the Deputy Premier voicing our continued dissatisfaction with the planning department.
Handle that when the item comes up.
Yeah, okay. The General Manager said when the planning issue comes up, we'll handle it then.
Right.
Yes, Councillor McAllister?
On page 26, Madam Mayor, the 10.5 in relation to the caravan on the reserve, I'm just a couple of points about reporting on what's happened in council. My memory, if I'm correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that Madam Mayor was concerned about the person in the caravan less so than the caravan itself. And I think also when council is reporting, this is a public document, the public gets to see this. And I think we lose our heart if we lose that message that councillors and indeed the mayor is concerned about a person. Checking on his welfare was my understanding of Madam Mayor's concern, more so than the structure being in the way of something. I think it would be, and no reflection on staff writing down the wrong words or anything, but I just think it's really important that we convey the message that we're trying to get across here, that this council and in particular the mayor is concerned about the people in Wentworth Shire.
Thank you, Councillor McAllister. You are right, the van is still there and I don't believe there is a person in it. It's just a matter of, has he gone? What is the thing? And then we come back to the caravan because, having said that, it's on a levee bank. So, Mr. Well, we think this code. I haven't been over the bank.
We went into that. We had reported by my agency well over 18 months ago. A long time ago.
No, he's been there. He's had a couple of dogs because the gentleman said he was maintaining the land.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have, in dealing with this, in the first instance, both myself and the Aboriginal Police Liaison Officer attended the site and we spoke to the gentleman there. And we did check on his welfare and made sure he had access to all services and amenities that he needed, including that sort of support from the Aboriginal Land Council and Aboriginal Services and anything that we could do from either a police or a council sort of aspect. In recent weeks and months, the gentleman hasn't been at the site. I did send him emails to the email address I have on file for him, asking him where his whereabouts were, what he was doing, and things like that. I didn't get any response, but when I went up there yesterday afternoon to check on the site, I did notice that there was a second additional car on the site that had New South Wales plates on it. There was no one there when I went and knocked on the caravan, but it looks to me as of yesterday afternoon that he has returned to the site after being away for a period of time.
Okay, well, so long as we just check, because my concern is as well that he doesn't have toilet facilities and things, and I think his health is a concern, as well as the neighbours, because if he's defecating around the place there at the levee bank, there are significant houses next door. Thank you. Any further questions? No further questions. The recommendation's been moved and seconded. Those in favour? Thank you. Now, go to 9.1, the mayoral report. There's a recommendation there. Somebody move it, please.
Well, if you're moving it, Madam Mayor, I'll second it.
I'll move it, and Councillor McAllister seconded. It's very much shortened because of COVID. We haven't been anywhere. We really haven't done. I mean, I'm meeting with the staff. We haven't done a huge amount outside council. However, it's there, so no questions. Sorry.
Just a question about our member Helen Dalton coming to the area. We don't seem to get any coming to council to talk to us. Our last person that was in the job seemed to come and talk to us about things going on. I haven't seen Helen Dalton in our area. So, you know, it's important, I think, that we either invite her to come and talk with us and view what's going on in our community.
You're right, Councillor Haywood. Following the meeting we had up at the Royal, I spoke with Julie Jewell and invited her as soon as it was possible for us to have a meeting with Helen, to have a meeting with her, and also with several other organisations that we have here as well, because she's not always in the region, but Julie has said that that'll happen. So as soon as we can have an open meeting, we will. She's very approachable and doesn't have any problem with meetings. So.
Don't be too open to the woman. The bloody Premier came here and wouldn't meet with us.
Hmm?
The Premier came here and wouldn't meet with us. Don't meet in here and I don't see your council. That was just like, that was bloody rude, I thought. Bloody rude.
So, yeah. Anyway, it's been moved and seconded. Those in favour? That's carried. 9.2, the General Manager's report.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McAllister. Seconded. Councillor Haywood. Councillors, we have more than two councillors in the room. Is there any questions of the General Manager in his report? Councillor McAllister.
Yeah, I do, Madam Mayor. I've sort of scratched my head a little bit about, and again, not sort of being critical about how things are done, but on page 30, on to third dot point, where it refers to in order to apply for a JRA subsidy eligibility, councils are required to submit an FSER return for assessment. I could nowhere find what FSER stands for. And I think, you know, it'd be really good if the General Manager was to read this report before it goes into a public document and just check that all of the abbreviations, I mean, I used to work in health and there's a lot of acronyms in health. Local government has a lot of them too. But if in the first instance we can find out what the letters stand for and then put the letters in a bracket so that, you know, we understand what we're reading. I'm still no wiser. Can someone explain what an FSER return is, please? It's got something to do with an eligibility return, perhaps financial services, maybe the Director of Finance and Policy. No one's the wiser. So even the Office of Local Government didn't address it in their circular. That's just one point. On page 32, Madam Mayor, around the 30th of August, so a little further than halfway down, Loddon Mallee Region IMT meeting. Is that incident management team?
That's exactly what that one is, yes.
Yeah, all right, that'd be great if we could, you know, use words that people understand, because councillors might understand what these acronyms mean, but the public, when they're reading these documents, they also need to understand what we're talking about for the sake of transparency. And if I can just go back, Madam Mayor, everybody's indulgence, page 31, right down at the bottom, there was a Transgrid Energy Connect update, which I'd be really interested in hearing a bit more about if the General Manager can remember back to the 19th of August.
Yeah, so Transgrid Energy update is in relation to the interconnector between Robertson and Wagga in terms of that project. So pertaining particularly to our council, they're advised that the senior principal contractor has been appointed, and they will basically have a small team come into our community and secure further subcontractors from local establishments and providers and service providers. And further to that, they'll give consideration to where camps for workers would be set up, and looking down the Renmark Road and one on the Arumpo Road, close to the on the Arumpo Road, closer to the transformer there. So it's really the update in summary is that project is continuing. They envisage that their small team will be in our shire within the next, or now we'd be down to within the next 4 to 6 weeks, and I think they have had ads in local papers looking for local service providers to help them out with the contractual arrangements. So yeah, it's really that's probably the short version of to say it's a project moving ahead. They've appointed a principal contractor and they'll be working with us locally. They've done a road maintenance agreement for the Renmark Road for us to make sure that's upgraded, well, not upgraded, but maintained in its current serviceability state. That's all that I can think of off the top of my head, Councillor.
So the subcontractors would include cultural monitoring?
Yeah, they had their own consultation with Indigenous groups and other parties, yes.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions on this? No further questions. I'm sure that the staff have taken on board that we need to have all the acronyms written down, and been a mover and a seconder, so those in favour? Carried. 9.3, Wentworth Regional Tourism Incorporated, request for financial assistance for production of the Wentworth Shire and Outback Visitor Information Guide. Somebody move it, please.
I'll move that with,
Seconded Councillor Evans.
Sorry, just for clarity, Madam Mayor, what is being moved? There are 3 options.
I'm moving that A.
And I would be moving that.
Okay, any questions on?
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Is it also probably a really good time for council to look at other forms of promoting businesses and tourism in the region as well? The printed matter is really good for people who can get into the visitor information centre and thumb through it as they're driving around, or as they're having dinner wondering what to do tomorrow. But for people who are planning a trip and noting that in the current climate there's less sort of reliance on paper-based things as limiting spread, for example, of the dreaded virus, would it also be a good time for council to look at apps or other promotional material so that we're not just sort of putting all our eggs in one basket, as it were? And also I'd be interested to note how many of these booklets get published and then how many are returned.
Councillor McAllister, you're right. There are many in our community who don't know how much council's input is into tourism, and this council in particular does put huge amounts of money and grants and things, and perhaps the General Manager might like to expand on what this council does do towards tourism.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In relation to grow tourism and working collaboratively from memory, so basically I'm working with the local tourism group to upgrade the signboards. We're a member for Murray Regional Tourism. We're part of the river port strategy. We've got our own Port of Wentworth strategy to be completed out of the JO funded money. We're part of the Darling River Run, Mildura Development Association. We're working with them for potentially a Bruce Munro Field of Lights type component. We're part of the Surf Desert Steps and that astronomy park that's being built up at Milparinga will be closely aligned with the future development of our astronomy park. If we were sort of to holistically think about tourism, obviously the aerodrome upgrade, the caravan park, the interpretive space in the future civic centre, the Junction Island Bridge and the walk. So we're possibly physically a significant player in the field of tourism, but your app component will be linked with the interpretive centre in the civic centre. So I accept that there's more opportunity for digital or technological advancement in the tourism field. So I think I'll take it on. It was certainly a component of the interpretive centre to go in the civic centre. That was where it was sort of going to be unfolded, and as part of the Port of Wentworth Port of Wentworth strategy and things to do around that. So a good valid point for which I can only suggest that we will be moving into that field in the future of the interpretive centre, Port of Wentworth, even interpretation around the astronomy park and the link to the Junction Island. So
just a supplementary but related question, if I may. Sorry, Councillor Wilson. Is there a Visit Wentworth website, a standalone website?
there is, yeah, associated with the visitor information centre.
Yeah. Before you, Councillor Wilden, Brian's in the room. I think the print's 50,000 and they're all virtually all gone, aren't they?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've traditionally printed 20-odd thousand, and occasionally there's been a reprint. This time we're looking to print 25,000 copies. The full booklet does go onto the Visit Wentworth website as a link, and also through the Discover Wentworth website as a link. So you can view the entire booklet online, so that possibly goes partly towards answering your question in relation to the appropriate act, but no doubt the General Manager will address that with the Civic Centre.
Thank you.
Look, the reason for the request was businesses are really struggling out there. Some are closed permanently, some are closed down because of restrictions. Some operators are actually, business owners have actually sought jobs themselves to keep money coming in, to keep the business afloat. That's how bad things are getting. So the initiative behind the letter was to try and just give a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of help to businesses within the whole Shire and up the Darling to an extent, because we are one big community. Give some hope to those businesses that know that the Shire is on board in relation to tourism. Our group is a volunteer not-for-profit, and whilst we've been producing the OBGs in the past, it's always been on a cost recovery basis, charged back to the individual operators. So, in a nutshell, just looking for that little bit of help this time round to the businesses in our community.
Thank you.
Councillor, thank you, Brian. Councillor Wilden?
Madam Mayor, I believe something very simple, like a sheet with the various tourist things you can do in Wentworth. Just a sheet with a little square so they can tick them off would be very good value and wouldn't cost a lot. And I think if the Tourist Information Centre gave them out when they came in for a query, it would be really good, because they could say, oh, I haven't seen that. Then the ticket. I think it's so simple and so basic that it'd be well worth council's effort to do.
Thank you, Councillor Wilden.
If I may respectfully suggest that maps are handed out with those tick and flick items around it for every visitor that goes in the visitor information centre.
But I just think a little square so they can tick them off would be really good, and then possibly an improvement on your map.
Sounds like we'll do a show.
I have a question, Madam Mayor,
Yes,
if I can.
thank you.
Can I ask Mr. Bowman a question?
Yeah, yes, you may.
Brian, would you think that, I'm just thinking back, like 2 years ago, I think council put 10,000 into this production or something. So this is nearly 3 times as much, which is fine in terms of support. Would you envisage it's a one-off because of the COVID circumstances?
Yeah, well, that's what I thought at this stage, Tim, certainly. And look, I do acknowledge, and I'm going to say that the Shire has been very supportive in the past with smaller contributions. No question about that. It's been fantastic. The Shire has been supportive, as have the Visitor Information Centre and the staff there with their input. But like we're in fairly difficult times at the moment, and this is one way that I've seen, or our group has seen, that we can help out local business. I should just add too that whilst we're a membership-based group, I would like to think that council would be supportive of utilising some of these funds to actually cast the net a bit broader and get some others to come and go to take this opportunity to also advertise the business in the OVG. I think it provides an opportunity to sort of cast the net a bit broader and bring in some of those businesses that perhaps in the past have thought, look, we can't afford it anyway. I see it as an opportunity to promote as many businesses, tourist-related businesses, as possible within the region. Not just the members at this point in time.
Just following up with
Councillor Evans.
I think the connection between the written form is and the OVGs we have now is that we obviously all the links are in the written information. So the booklet provides information for people to link back through to our websites. Also, all the individual businesses also have an opportunity to advertise their Facebook and Twitter, etc., etc. So I think at this point in time, that is the important link. That may fade in the future with advancements in technology, but I think right now it's a good way to get it out there, and I support a bit of assistance there, and certainly I think the report shows us here that it's not something that's going to put us at peril because we're doing this without major variations. So I think it's an important thing that we're doing for the tourist industry in our area.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Well, it's been moved and seconded. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. 9.4, Union Picnic Day. Move and a seconded, please. I'll go Councillor Wheeldon. I'm looking for someone else.
I'd like to know what council is moving.
We support the holiday.
A or B?
A or B? I've got to get a seconder first, sorry.
We couldn't know what he's moving before it was
Oh.
accepted.
There's a recommendation by A and B.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's one here.
A and B? Councillor?
Yeah, I am B.
A. Seconded then for A and B, if there's any.
Happy to do this.
Councillor Elstone. Any comment, please? Yes, Councillor. God, it's shocking, isn't it?
I think that letter from you is highly offensive to this council, they should be told so. It's none of their bloody business what we do with their non-union staff. They should be dictating to us what goes on.
It's
A bloody impertinence, that's what it is.
it's
It's probably
actually
signed by a witness, signed by Gary Bean, who's probably 50 yards down the ladder. So important this to us.
the first time I've ever received a letter in
So
20.
some staff here are complaining about other staff taking the day off, that they're paying out of their own leave. That's what brought down to. They're not getting it for nothing, they're taking a day's leave to have the same day off because you can't have half the council running with it all or nothing. And I think that, as you point out, this pack of bloody bills, that's what important out. And I'm inclined to sort of move them in that the non-union staff had a milk and cuppa holiday. Union staff have got it, they're having a day off without losing a day's play. We can't function with half the council, so I reckon I will move for this year that we give all non-union staff a Melbourne Cup Day holiday. Not a little picnic, it's a Melbourne Cup Day holiday.
That was an option.
Just a comment, can we legally move it as a council that staff have a holiday?
You can. We always have.
No, that wasn't the question I asked. We know we usually do with the union picnic, but you're suggesting a separate day as a holiday, and my concern is can we legally just declare a holiday? I mean, we do with the union picnic.
The day off.
Well, you're an employee, you can,
Do we like?
to give your staff a day off.
It doesn't,
Anyway,
research suggests that doesn't contravene any of the
Okay.
awards.
That's fine.
Madam Mayor, we've always said that the Union Picnic Day was on the
Cup Day.
first Tuesday in November. And that's logical, and I can't see anything wrong with continuing with that.
Thank you.
Well, can I ask, oh, sorry.
McAllister, sorry.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to play devil's advocate on 2 points. First of all, I think there's a point of order. In actual fact, on page 46, there are 2 options, 2 separate and discrete options. The second point I'll make is that the reason why you join a union is so that your union can advocate for fairer conditions at work, for things like having a picnic day, which is something that unions do, and that's a way that staff can celebrate being part of a union, which gives them some solidarity and some cohesion. The members of staff who choose not to join a union should not be penalised. I agree with Councillor Noonan in that. Sorry, just looking over there and seeing the different name through me for a second.
Yeah, that's what.
I would suggest that at the moment, a lot of staff are working from home. We'd have to accept that for those of us who are working from home, we know we're not working at 100% capacity because we're dealing with everything, including some of us are also homeschooling children. And I would not expect that, we need to necessarily shut the business if there's work that can be done. So I would favour option 2. Option 1, that the union picnic day is for members of the union, and then in terms of what we do with the rest of the staff, we need to make it apparent that if we're offering non-union staff the day off, that it's called Melbourne Cup Day holiday, or that I don't agree that that the union's doing anything other than what they do.
Well, don't be this is the union where it's back to that $4.80 per week gratuity tip we try to rub it, But the staff want to get $4.80 a week, that's $2.50 a year once you pass a certain level. So this union worries about the union. I don't think we should take any rubbish off them whatsoever. We do what we want as council, not what the bloody United Services Union wants us to do. I think we should be told that. If we want to get our staff a day off, we bloody well will.
Actually, councillors, what we've moved and seconded is not what we're talking about at the moment. It's different to page 46. So first of all, we need to go back to the recommendation, and it is A, is that we approve November the 2nd as the award holiday known as Union Day, and B is that it requires non-union members to apply for leave should they want to take the day. So that's what was being moved and seconded.
But he made an amendment.
Amendment.
He didn't make an amendment.
Well, I'll make an amendment. I'll move an amendment then. The award, the union, right, well, okay, the financial members of the United Services Union have their picnic day off on the day specified by them, which in this case is Melbourne Cup Day. That the non-union members have a day's leave on full pay, and we call it, if it's Melbourne Cup Day, it's Melbourne Cup Day, because, I mean, what the union will do is now, when we do that, they'll swap the union picnic day for another day. So then we have 2 lots of people having Melbourne Cup Day off. So we've got to be careful around that. But we give them a day off and call it a celebration day or something like that, not necessarily Melbourne Cup Day. Because the union will change, don't you worry.
We've got a seconder for that, Councillor Haywood. Now, you were part of... No, you weren't, that's okay.
So just a point of order, Madam Mayor, my memory said that Councillor Noonan seconded Councillor Wheeldon's.
No, it was Councillor Wheeldon and Councillor Elstone.
No, okay.
I'll withdraw it.
If it's you and Councillor Elstone anyway, Councillor Wheeldon, so, all right, is there any...
I'll rephrase it, all right. We approve A, and B will be non-union members will have a day off that corresponds to that particular day, and it'll be turned just because they'll be given a name, not necessarily.
Okay, so in other words, we're approving for all our staff to have that
To have
day.
a similar day off as a goodwill day.
Okay. Okay, have the staff got that? Is that printed behind me? Is that...
I can't read it for you, someone wants to read it.
It actually, Madam Mayor, says that the council resolution was carried.
That's going to be taken out.
Oh, you're going to amend that, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's actually A and B is that
What does B say? Non-council staff,
maybe non-union
non-union
staff.
members, of the Shire council staff,
Will receive a similar day off as a goodwill day.
yes.
So-
It's a goodwill day.
Are you happy with that? Okay.
And you can go and jump. I mean, it's going to cost, what the hell?
Oh, in that case,
You
I'll,
stipulated, councillor Noonan, that it is on the same day. Is that
Be on the same day as Union 50 Day.
okay.
Which they continue with, the Melbourne Cup, so yeah, if they decide to change it, they change that. But there's been Melbourne Cup Day since Adam was a pup, I think. Won't change.
Okay, happy? All right, we'll move the amendment which is on the board. Those in favour? Those carried, those against? What it written? What?
Yes.
Councillor McAllister is against it. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to the next one, 9.5. Oh, sorry, the amendment now becomes the motion. Those in favour of the motion? It's carried, and the same against, yeah, same against. Thank you. The motion's carried. 9.5, the monthly financial report. There's a recommendation, a move and a second, please. Councillor Evans, well done. Councillor Noonan, you move the finance.
I'll ask questions when you can second it.
Councillor Haywood. Difficult. Okay, questions, please.
On
Councillor.
page 51. Yep. Roads and engineering indoor staff, they must be using their own cars, are they? $1,018 worth of mileage. Have we got a spare sitting over there in the yard they can use? Sure, spare.
Since that pay period, we've now accommodated a novated lease for that officer, so that mileage won't be happening.
I am relieved to hear that.
Sorry, that had been in the making for quite some time, but the vehicle didn't show up for a lengthy period of waiting.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Wilson?
We're offered some financial cheap loans through some government department.
Not up to that part yet, love, Councillor Wilden. The next one, love. Oh, sorry.
It
No,
may be relevant.
we can talk about it in.
It may be relevant.
There are loans, council loans before there, so.
Page 51.
Oh, okay, there is a loans reward. Sorry, Councillor Wilden, go back to it. And
I've just wondered, we've been fobbed off and it was an offer of cheap money, and I just wondered if we'd had a response to it.
Top of page 51, Councillor Wilson. 2 T-Court
Two
loans.
T-Corp loans are the low interest government loan bodies.
Yeah, T-Corp.
So they were the ones that we were previously approved for within that 6 months amnesty. I actually had a phone call from someone from T-Corp on Monday, sort of indicating that there would be an announcement sometime in the next week, which would be an announcement that we would like, and that we will probably get access to T-Corp loans, so just waiting for that announcement to be made.
That's good to hear, because subsequent to questions raised by Councillor McAllister, we sent correspondence off to several bodies that want to achieve access to these cheaper loans.
Can I just ask then, Madam Mayor, just on that point, there are 2 different interest rates on those T-Corp loans. Were you given any heads up about what sort of figures they're bouncing around at the moment?
Yeah, no, not at this stage.
Any idea why the 2 different?
Oh, just when we withdrew, because when drew down the loan, so it was a $2 million loan, we drew down $1 million first, and then drew down the other $2 million about a month later, so there was a slight movement in the interest rates in that month's period.
Interesting.
have you a question, Councillor? No. I've got a question on page 51. On page 51. Roads and engineering indoor, the overtime position. Can you tell me why we'd have so much overtime for an indoor staff during this time of, during COVID? What are they? I mean, you've got.
I'll be able to answer that. I think there's a number of projects that have been going on. So in an effort to get all the required tenders and the information up with regards to projects such as the airport, the caravan park development, and there's also been a significant amount of work that has been happening on some jobs on the weekend, requiring some engineering input and surveillance out of theirs for over that period of time. There has been times where there's been an hour or two that's been required by staff to look after hours with regards to certain projects. So it's not extensive, but it has just with regards to the number of projects and development work that's happening at the moment, that's necessitated council staff to be on site and to provide engineering indoor surveillance and inspection.
I would consider 40 hours fairly extensive. Councillor Wilton?
Yeah, could I have some details on the unexpended funds on the astronomy park? Which is quite a substantial amount of money and it hasn't been used. Is it going to be used? When is it going to be used?
Yeah.
And the Junction Island Bridge, when's it happening? What are they doing about expending that money?
Well,
if we don't do a few of these jobs, then we're going to lose the grant.
The next item, Councillor Wilton.
We'll remember those for the next item, Councillor Wilton.
Just before we do move on, Madam Mayor, if I may, page 50, the credit adjustments. Any idea, or is that a lump of several?
3,400. Mr. Rule.
Yeah, that's just oftentimes people pay their rates or their water into the wrong account. So they pay their rates off their water or their water off their rates and still unfortunately accrue interest. So when that happens, we oftentimes just wipe the interest in that regards. And there's also some adjustments from time to time when we receive additional valuations where we have to reduce the rate that we charge for particular rate payers if their valuation changes.
So that's in general terms, but we don't know the specifics of.
I couldn't tell you the specific properties that they relate to.
Okay.
I don't need to know the properties, just
Yeah.
the list in general.
It's been moved and seconded. Those in favour? That's carried. Now, 9.6 monthly investment report. Councillor mover and seconder, Councillor Noonan. Seconder, Councillor Elstone, and we'll take on board Councillor Wilton's question he asked previously. Read those two items: the lighting park and the
the Junction Island Bridge. I just want to know when they're going to happen.
Yeah. Who's going to put their hand up?
Might be able to provide an update on the Junction Island Bridge. So there's two designs that are nearing completion with the options to facilitate the two options for clearance for boats and to still allow for disabled access and following the fire in previous months to also allow access for vehicle for maintenance and for firefighting, which was an extra load on the bridge. So both those options are nearing completion for a decision prior to going out to tender. There's certainly, I think the grant still has, like the time frame for expenditure for the grant is still well within that time frame. So we expect to not go outside that. But I would expect in the next month or so that those final designs will be completed and ready to go out to tender.
Thank you. I can understand councillor Wheelton's concern with that because the Junction Island Bridge has come before this council 10 years ago. So I can understand his concern. The other with the sound and light show, I think you've got an answer to that. General Manager.
Basically, we're still going through the design phase. We're working with the same group or organisation that's doing the design for the Milparinga one, I think it is. So we're just trying to, basically build the design so we can go to tender, and we'll be doing something similar to what's currently happening north of us. And like the previous one, it's still within the parameters of the quitting of the grant on time.
Councillor Hayward.
Just on the water fund we've got here, nearly $9.5 million. There's a lot of work being done up at Golgol. Is there any big plans to upgrade the water facilities up there for the development going ahead? There seems to be a lot of development and not much moving in the water department.
Infrastructure.
Behind
we spoke about quite regularly.
It has been a regular topic of question around us. So the answer through the roads and engineering areas that we're working on a integrated water cycle management plan. There's this big line of thinking about future demands being met by a complete overhaul of filtered water treatment plants or raw water pumping stations or towers or whatever else. But the final detail as to what will unfold, while it's a long time coming, we hope to have a result early in the new year so that we can start attending to some of those outcomes of the strategy.
Well, there seems to be a lot of money, and we need that facility up there.
It's not only up there; it's up here as well.
Yeah.
Councillor Wellstone.
Yeah, question to Finance Director. The capital projects reserve of $1 million. An extraordinary meeting we had back in June, we supported a further 200,000 to go to that for this financial year for the Bowling Green. Where's that?
So that'll show up in November. So those reserves that are on page 55 are currently subject to our audit. So as part of the process of doing the presentation of the financial statements in November, I also moved a resolution to accept the movements in the reserves, and there's a table on there. So that's when that additional $200,000 will show up in that reserve, and an allowance was made in the operational plan for this year based on that resolution.
Any further comments, Councillor McAllister?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'm just noting that there's increased investment. It looks quite substantial on that little graph. You know how I love a graph. I'm just wondering how and if that's going to impact our external restrictions. Whether you've done the projections on that yet.
Most of it will be, the main increase is just a huge amount of grant money that we've been given in the last 12 months or so for projects, plus the 6 monthly forward advancement of our financial assistance grant, which is $3.3 million. So we will spend that during the course of the year. So that's about the only external restriction that money impacts, and yet we will be spending that on grants and on projects as we go through the years. The government seems to be intent on getting money out of their bank account and giving it to us.
Madam Mayor, sorry, I wasn't clear on that answer. The FAG, those grants, if we're spending them throughout the year, would they not be cash at hand once we've invested?
Oh, we invest some of it. We have some of it as cash in hand. We move money out of our operational account on a regular basis to try and get better interest. So generally we try and keep sort of between $1 million and $2 million in our operational account on a regular basis just to pay for ongoing bills and payroll and stuff like that. And then as term deposits come due, we then assess to see whether we need to call that back for operational reasons or whether we reinvest it for a period of time. We do have some funds in cash and call accounts as well to help assist that process, and it's about trying to get a little bit better interest in the 0.1 that we get for the money just sitting in our operational account.
Thank you.
Any other councillors? It's sad to see that our rate of return on investments dropped to around 90,000 a year from around 750,000 a year. It's a sad state of return. It certainly reflects on what we have to spend. Those in favour of the recommendation? It's carried. Thank you. 9.7, the annual disclosures of designated persons, and it's all there for Councillor Noonan, it's Councillor Wheeldon, it's all there for everyone to see. Any comment by anyone? No comment. Okay, those in favour, move and seconded. Thank you. And I've just discovered that it's 9.8. Move and a seconder. It's an update and status of rural land strategy.
Move with a comment.
Councillor Elstone, Councillor Wheeldon, comment.
Yeah. I'll just refer everyone to page 64.
4.
And then go the halfway down and the bold printing.
Yep.
It's basically taken us 8 years to go back to square one to tell us there's 3 years to review it and do it all again. And I think
disgraceful.
that probably sums up the frustration of some of us, that it's just round and round a circle and nothing happens. And it's certainly not a shot at our staff. The goalposts just keep moving, and we're getting nowhere.
Disheartening. Councillor Wheeldon.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I believe that this summary of our frustration should be sent to the Deputy Premier, and with our absolute disgust and disappointment in the performance of the New South Wales Planning Department, and ask him if he can speed something up, because our residents and ratepayers are just absolutely frustrated, and there's not a hell of a lot of light on the end of the tunnel. There's perhaps that it might be finished in a couple of months. We've put up with excuses like that for years, and I'm just not satisfied that what we're being told about, things might be good in 2 months. They might be good in 3 years the way they're going, and we've got to get some action. And I believe it's important that we send this with a letter of absolute disappointment in the performance of the New South Wales Planning Department.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Wheeldon is moving that this council write a letter to the Deputy Premier. I will second that, and also suggest that we refer back to conversations this council had in 2016, I think, at the Western Division Council with both the Deputy Premier and the Minister at the time, Noel Blair, both in that little office at the Keniella Club. And we spoke about planning issues that have taken 17 years and sought his intervention at that stage, which he said he would do. And this is an excellent example. And if I may continue, just to take up Councillor Elstone's point, the paragraph underneath was the one that concerned me even greater. In March and April of 2021, it looks as though council have tried to discuss with the department how can we move forward on this, and it was decided that perhaps we need to get a policy paper or some rural land planning controls review document. Like you don't want to see what I've written in the sidelines to that, but why now all of a sudden have they come up with an idea about having a policy? I mean, are we not guided? Is there no coherent guidelines that all councils can have in terms of how to jump through bureaucratic hoops? Or is there just a brick wall that all of a sudden we've got somebody asking the right questions and we're finding out that there have been deficiencies throughout because we just haven't had that information in the past?
And I think to further endorse that, Madam Mayor, if you read the history of it, we've attempted to do that.
Yeah.
And we just, like the old pug dog, just keep running into a brick wall.
And that's what I'd like forwarded with our letter.
Okay, well, it's, council notes the content of the report and resolves to write a letter to the department. I think what you're saying is correct, and I think the reporting officer of this, for the work that they've put in to pull all this together, and I don't know whether perhaps it might be an idea to send this abridged version with the letter.
And point it out.
I think that's what Councillor Wilden sought, and that's what the motion says, but
Yeah.
Further, I think Councillor Wilden also suggested that we request the Deputy Premier intervene to expedite matters, is that correct? Or words along.
I mean, we've been fobbed off for so many years, it's ridiculous.
Yes. Because this just can't continue. We had those controversial planning decisions when we thought we were about to go into an election, and we've left a whole line of disgruntled ratepayers who consider it's our issue, when in actual fact we're guided by this document that's just been an absolute cluster for a very long time, needs to be resolved as soon as possible, and the timeline going forward doesn't engender any faith in the process or in the bureaucrats that are supposedly guiding how we're supposed to move forward.
And we're protesting about land that is fully serviced with school buses, electricity, post, everything.
I think.
And we can prove that it's unliable, most of these blocks of land, and it's just ridiculous.
I think we've got the sentiment, and
Well, if I can just comment on Councillor Wilden's comments here. I mean, we went through this and we had a planning panel here 2 or 3 years ago
We had the chief planner here.
who concurred with everything we're looking at. And then, but that planning panel's now done its 2 years, so you're back to square one. And this is a process that just goes round and round and round, and we get nowhere. And it's, as everyone's saying, it's just not good enough. We need it in place.
any further comment? I think we've just about.
Can I just read that motion so that?
Well, I've got here that council.
Do you want to read it?
That council notes the content of the report and resolves to write a letter to the Department of Planning regarding the disappointment to bureaucratic process and requesting the Deputy Premier intervene to expedite an outcome. Is that what it says?
The letter was to go to the Deputy
The letter to the Deputy.
Deputy Premier. And you can include the Department of Planning. They've proved they can't or won't do anything.
Okay, well, there's council.
Department of Planning will get it. The Deputy Premier will
Yeah, that'll go there. Council notes the content of the report and resolves to write a letter to the Deputy Premier and include the Department of Planning regarding our disappointment to bureaucratic process and requesting Deputy Premier to intervene to create an outcome.
And that letter, that summary of our efforts has got to be included in the letter.
Yep. And
just instead of our council's disappointment.
Yeah, well, council's disappointment. And a copy of the
disappointment and frustration, I would add.
Yeah.
Because it has been frustrating.
Yeah, it's a beautiful.
Yes, well.
And that the history of council's attempts be included in the letter.
But yes, we're sick of being fobbed off. We want action.
Do we include the fact that we had the planning person out here?
I'm sure that'll be in the letter. That would go in the letter that we send, saying those sorts of things.
And recalling the Deputy Premier's
meeting we had in
he agreed to
perhaps reminding that he is also minister for New South Wales.
You can
Despite the office being in the middle of Sydney.
Yes,
in the rocks is where the office of New South Wales.
I mean, probably what the attempts is probably not quite the right word, but councils,
chronology.
We'll work out what it is.
The chronology included in the report, probably an easy way.
Yes. This report.
You're right, just chronologically within the report. Sorry, that sentence up a bit.
Yeah,
Just one question. The business paper gets sent to the newspapers, doesn't it?
No, they all know through
I'm just, where the council does it,
newspapers. Yes.
they get a copy of that.
Everything is publicly available through council's website. So these minutes will be generated tomorrow.
So if someone rang up the editor of the Sunrisers and say, why don't you include this as being newsworthy, they wouldn't be doing the wrong thing.
I would think that anything that's in any way controversial, they usually come at us anyway, Councillor Wheeldon. They're usually pretty well on.
First on happenings.
So there's no embargo anymore, so that's why you can make it.
I'm just asking because Sunrisers
Careful.
sometimes pick the wrong subject.
So that was moved by Councillor Wheeldon and seconded by myself, I think.
Moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McAllister. Please. Now, you happy with what's up there, councillors?
Yeah, I've just removed council's movements in this matter. Just that little bit is not required. The chronology within the report is to be included in this letter, or just to be included.
That's okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Those in favour? It's carried, thank you.
May I just ask one further question on this item, Madam Mayor, before we move on? Page 65, I'm just in relation to the process and timeframe going forward. Right at the top of the page, It says a review of the comments provided by DPI Ag will be undertaken and any adjustments to the RLPC will be made if warranted. Do we have that imprimatur? Can we decide what's warranted or not? Do they not come back with prescriptive measures that we must?
They do. So I guess what that's saying is that if the rural land use planning control document has already addressed any concerns they have, we won't include them. But if there's anything new or surprising, then we might need to consider them. So
it's not that their comments of whether they're warranted, it's whether it's already been done. Thank you, I misread that.
9.9, delegated authority approval says at the end of August 2021. There's a recommendation. Move it, please.
Sorry, did we vote on the previous?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
We voted on the letter. Did we vote on the recommendation?
I thought we had.
We changed the recommendation to the motion.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. 9.9, you're going to disappear.
Yes. Thank you. Sorry. Shame I can't vote on the other ones.
Councillor Hayward's going to move. Who's going to second it? Councillor Evans. Now, are there any comments or questions, please, councillor? None? That being the case, those in favour? And it's carried. There's a division, so those in favour of the division, it's carried. Thank you very much. Councillor McAllister can come back. It was fast, didn't it? 9.10 on page 71, projects and works report update for August. Move it, please. Councillor McAllister, Councillor Elstone. Are there any questions on 9.10?
Just
Councillor Hayward.
Just on the traffic monitoring program, how's that going?
Yeah, you can see, obviously, we've included that information on previous questions, I suppose, or request for information from council. So the issues with the counters have primarily been resolved. We had the repairs and the replacements and the new issues done. You can see there all the locations that have been monitored and the proposal for the next lot. And as it says in there, that goes to providing the data and the information to support the upcoming and the proposal for the capital works related issues, together with other specific traffic and safety related matters that may be needed. So now that's progressing really well.
So it's given you some good information on what traffic are on the certain roads now?
It has, yeah, yep. Yeah, and as it should do so, we're in the process of, I suppose, addressing the backlog and fast getting to the point of getting into the proactive side.
Before we go off on that thing, I'll go to Councillor Wheeldon. We need to thank the officers for doing that. He's shown some aggression towards doing work that I believe is needed to be done. So, yeah. Pass on Councillor's thanks. Councillor Wheeldon.
In another job I got the South Australian figures for the use of the Red Mark Road, which I think were a bit understated by a hell of a lot. And I would like to know update on the usage of the Renmark Road from the engineer at some stage.
Okay.
Not sure now's the time while the border's closed.
No. But that road's going to be used a lot more with Transgrid and the new mine.
Okay.
I need to be kept up to date.
Councillor McAllister.
I just wanted to pass on thanks that I heard from the Wentworth Shire Interagency Group for the councillor who pushed for street lighting in Denton. I mentioned to the group that it was Councillor Noonan who's been very proactive.
Councillor McKinnon has been director for about 7 years.
Yeah.
Finally got it done.
So
thank you for
that committee were very grateful.
Well done. Councillor
Just a question
Evans.
on vehicular traffic on the River Road there during the lockdown or shutdown of the Abbotsford Bridge, whether we're going to be looking at perhaps a maintenance program which is going to, I know there's been a bit of work done there, shoulders and so forth, but whether that roadway, due to its popularity during that time, has been hammered pretty hard. I'm wondering whether it's going to cost us in the future just to look at that situation.
Yeah, there are a couple of specific sites that are identified for the major pavement patching, and then also there's some significant other reseal works that have to go on there. But you're correct, the traffic count went up to, I believe it was around about 1,800 or 1,900 vehicles a day for that extended period when the bridge was closed, which is a significant amount. And yeah, as I would have noticed here, there was some maintenance related issues, particularly with the shoulders, which the work staff have since addressed, but that has resulted in certain parts of damage along that road, and we do have specific areas where we've identified.
I would agree with Councillor Evans that road needs to be identified as an area of significant increase and concern. planning into the future probably requires that road is widened at the very least, if not a passing lane or it just, not only the increase in traffic, but the increase in usage on a commercial level with the tankers going through, etc. I think that probably needs to be made or have a safety sort of consideration into the future.
Yes,
It's a big concern popularity of the road when it's down within the seal, but it's a public highway not far away that we don't have to maintain. The same is going to happen on Wentworth Road. We're going to seal an old road, we've got one property out, but we have to maintain it forever and a day. We've got a public road highway which is 87 metres long as we go to Wentworth on the highway from Kennedy Drive turn off. 8700 metres further. So why would we seal Wentworth Road?
Well, I suppose
that's a valid point. When we make decisions, I think that the restrictions we have now and on the highway there have caused people to change their direction, and it's just encouraged the wrong situation.
I mean,
Probably
years ago and
Backfired on us.
Probably the only comment I would make is that I believe all our towns should have 2 available entries to go into it, because if one bridge goes out, you're then up the creek. That's my concern. It's a safety thing.
Start planning for another bridge.
Anyway, having said that, any further? Councillor Hayward.
Just on that road, the back road to Debt, and I've pushed for a long time since I've been in council that we make it an 80k road, which will deter people to use the highway. It's a dangerous road in places, really. When you get down to Boyle Creek area, and going past the botanical gardens and that, it is a bit of a windy road, and it'll take a lot of money to upgrade that when we've already got a highway there, as Councillor Noonan is saying, that we don't have to maintain, and we need to make sure people are using that, but still keep the other one in good condition, but not as a super highway.
We've got 2-legged hoppers too, haven't we, after dark? Yeah.
more on the road than on the highway though.
Yeah.
Really,
All right. I think we've discussed it. We've had it moved. We've had it seconded. Those in favour of the recommendation? It's carried. Does this come? Do we have to move this into before we go confidential? Okay. Okay. All right. Notice 10. Notices of motion on page 79. Questions with notice. Does anybody have any? And we'll start down here. Councillor Evans. Councillor Noonan.
The dogs are still an issue in there, roaming around. I've spoken with Mr. Carl and had some success around about 20 dogs. They have a net gun. There's still 8 or 9 roaming around. I went out of my front yard last night, 3 dogs, big dogs. One appears to be a bit unique.
Oh dear.
And the pups are just given out and just let them roam. People want people and just let them roam in the street. So I think we need to just perhaps have a bit of
another roundup.
Another roundup with picking out net guns here. You can get those bigger dogs and take off as soon as they see problem, pull up, so they know easily.
Okay.
Because I'm getting regular complaints from older people.
Yeah, it needs to be something probably done before Christmas when the next lot's given out.
Will be very grateful.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Noonan. Councillor Wilden, do you have any? Is that all, Councillor Noonan?
That is all.
Councillor Wilden?
No, I've raised all mine.
Nothing? Councillor Hayward? Councillor McAllister?
I do have one, Madam Mayor. Council will remember that I've been talking for some time about tip tokens. We were very happy to receive the tip tokens that we received that allowed us to take green waste to the tip. And the first comment that I got, and every comment that I've heard since, is that green waste is already free. So what exactly is the purpose of the tip tokens?
Green waste is not free anymore. As of the 1st of July, we started charging for it.
Did we?
$7 for a flat trailer and $14 for a heat. 7 for a heat trailer.
Oh, something like that.
Yeah, I've been twice.
Alright, thank you.
When they try their next lot, they're going to have problems, Councillor.
Yeah, load the trailer, load her up.
Councillor Elstone.
Nothing specific, Madam Mayor, but I might just make mention of the first time since 2012. The Menindee Lake system is 101% full this morning. But I'll mention it with a bit of caution that we can't go to sleep on what we need to see out of this in terms of that 640, 480 rule. And that is that 480 is deliverable to the Lower Darling when it gets back to it, because it hasn't been the case. It's fantastic that all the river systems, and that's Australia, it changes. The Murray system's chock-a-block again. Hopefully we're on track to avoid some disasters. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but there's good water right back along the Darling all the way to the border. With Warren and Burke still 12,000 megs a day. In Kenya about 16, so great sign, but we need to be conscious as a council and a community to fight the fight.
Could I ask you a question there? This is the time I've advocated for long haul that the 480 should be higher.
Yeah, I think
640 is capacity.
640 is
when it gets that extra 2 years down here.
Yeah, when it gets to 640, it goes to Basin Authority control. When it comes back to 480, it splits out. The issue has been in the 480. Last time there was like 170 in Corndilla, which you can't deliver down the Lower Darling. There's 30 dead in Palama Route. So we never had the 480. We had 200 or 230. So that's argument number one. But yeah, I think I agree with you, and I think in fact we've spoken about it here. Councillor McAllister might remind me of it. We were talking 800 as a drought reserve at one stage,
which is more realistic given 200 can't be got at.
Yeah.
If you can't get at it, and I mean the argument has been, and I'd still stand by it, that could have possibly avoided the fish kills and the skin diseases and all the problems we had. That would have bought us another 15 months, and we only had to get from that January 19 to March 20. So
it's interesting to read. I read in the Murray-Darling Basin paper only this week where they're saying there's only 125 of dead, and we're saying 250. It's also states, but I'll finish. It also states very clearly that New South Wales is the runner of the rivers, and with what they've left from the Hume and what's coming down, we may well have a flood here. And I know you can answer that, and that's concerning because some of the work we're doing on the river may disappear under the water. Councillor Elstone.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that, particularly if you look at the Darling system and we're going into a cyclone season. That starts November, December. If we get a thumper up there, the only good thing out of it, I guess, is we get plenty of notice. If there's water coming, the option there is to let a bit down the river, let a bit down the Anna Branch, which is going to happen in March, I see. But if you got them both, if they got a big storm over the ranges in the east and the Murray came, well, yeah, look out, it could happen. Everything is primed, ready to go if those big rains are there because the country's so wet and the catchments are so wet. Yeah. But I'd rather have it like that than where we were a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and the Anna Branch in March is still not back, isn't it?
Yeah, the initial talk was September. They've changed it for the fish and environmental reasons. I think I didn't have a hard study of the email, but they have made the comment, and well, no, we'll miss the yabbies for the summer. They have made the comment, if there was a big rain up north now, they'd let it go sooner, so. And that, basically I think they've had local consultation on that, and at the end of the day, that's our role is to support communities, so.
Yeah.
I think it's good, but I think we've just got to be conscious that now's not the time to lay down because everything's in good shape. You've got to keep at it while it is in good shape so we avoid the disasters we've seen.
Like the Anna Branch, you think that, and the biggest problem starts at Menindee with too many people got their finger in the pie that it all has to go through process and all have to agree before it's released, isn't it?
Yeah, I think with the Anna branch though, that, if it was me, I'd be letting it go now.
Yeah.
Purely because it'll go from Lake Cornwall, which is water that we can't get back into.
Yep.
Into, the Lower Darling.
Lower Darling.
So why give it somewhere of evaporation for argument's sake? Why not let it go, and then if we do get another big rain, you got space to fill again, so.
McAllister.
Just a couple of points, if I may, well, not before actually, if you'll bear with me. I sat in on the webinar that the department had with the stakeholders, where they were discussing the flow down the Anna branch. The point of that was that they have found golden perch juveniles in the Lake Cornwall, and they just wanted them to get a little bit bigger before they let them go down the Anna branch. Because and it was actually reassuring to see that there are both Murray cod and golden perch in the Lower Darling and the lakes as well. On Madam Mayor's point, the Murray Darling Basin Authority are notorious at plucking numbers out of the air. They're the ones that decided it was 700 gigalitres of evaporation out of Menindee, with no basis in fact, no data to support that. The 125 gigalitres of dead storage, well, the locals will tell you that it's certainly much more than that. Secondly, on the point of New South Wales operating the lakes, when the lakes are above 640, that water is actually shared between Victoria and New South Wales for an agreement, the intergovernmental agreement to South Australia, and that's where that trigger is. And finally, on Monday, the floodplain harvesting inquiry, the select committee in New South Wales begins, and I don't know whether council's been invited to provide any input to that, but a submission was sent off.
You're doing it.
So we just haven't asked you the question yet. The invitation's come in and we're going to ask you to be representatives on it.
Do we know when that is? Because it's a little bit of short notice.
24th.
I can confirm that for you in just a moment.
I think it's 24th.
I'm happy to do it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
we figured
Everybody agrees.
you wrote it.
Yes, did the
Submission.
I'm not au fait with the attachment, so someone would have to be familiar with that.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to get back on you before you left today to sort of give you that message in a more.
Is there anything else?
Sorry. My final point was it's not only about the 640/480 rule. The point of connectivity needs to also be continually driven home, because while the river's connected now, that's great, but in actual fact nothing's changed. So we do need to make sure that those inflows come from the north so that they can be here, and floodplain harvesting, we know, has had a big impact on that. Finally, connectivity. No, it's gone. Sorry, that's
Well, I think generally that's the point I'm making, is now's not the time to go to sleep.
Yes.
Because everything's rosy.
Indeed.
We know those issues, and as you know, I've always said is, we've got two big problems with Menindee. One is getting the water there, and the other is keeping it there. And, so we're stuck in the middle, but our community copped it very bad.
The other point from that stakeholder thing was the concerns about the old Menindee town weir. The so-called removal hasn't removed the full structure, so there is still concern that if that weir, which was the site of the mass fish kills, was to be flush, it wouldn't be completely flush because there's still remnants of the weir, so they've botched that job as well. But it would be great for the whole system to have a really good flush.
I mean, things were rosy only a few years ago, and we saw what happened after that because
that's the problem, and that's the problem. After the field in 2012, and the same thing happened in 2016. The policy is drain Menindee first, because it saves on this evaporation. Nothing evaporates in the lower lakes. It don't matter. So now is the time. We've got to keep the argument up.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Anything further? Okay. We'll now go on to. We'll go into we're
Well,
closed,
I move
closed.
that amended council adjourned into the closed session, recording of the meeting be suspended. Members of the press and public excluded from the closed session. Access to the correspondence and reports relating to the items considered during the course of the closed session be withheld unless classified by separate.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wait for them to get back here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to report that during the closed session of business in this morning's meeting, Council, in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government General Regulation, accepts the tender from Waters Excavation Proprietary Limited, option 2, to carry the supply and delivery of 8,300 tonne of Class 3 wet mix road-based material, together with a provisional quantity of 1,000 tonne for the sum of $278,153.70, and authorise the Mayor and myself as the General Manager to sign that contract. And further to that, item 12.2 in relation to aerodrome lighting, that Council, in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government General Regulation 2005, accepts a tender from Advanced Airport Lighting to carry out the supply and installation of aerodrome lighting, the contract BT 2122/02 for an amount of $456,095, and further authorises the Mayor and I as the General Manager to sign that contract documentation and affix the Council seal. Thank you.
So Howard, you seconded that, we go back into council, didn't you? Yeah, thank you. fixing up. Okay, well, thank you, councillors, for your attendance, your input. Thanks the council officers, and hope you all stay safe and